Today we're going over the Tempest trials accompanying the Jehanna banner, scoring the maximum 50,000 points while you're up to 42 orbs, 11,000 feathers, and 80 sacred coins. This month you can get even more Ephemeral 1 Divine Codes, and due to Emblem Limb, you can get 20 regular Divine Codes Part 5. For Sacred Seals, we got Threatened Defense and Res, and Solid Ground. The reward unit is Jehanna Saber, who is a very solid unit. You can get a 4 and 5 star copy, and we'll talk about Saber more later on. Dispatch of Sacred Seals aren't the greatest. Threatened Defense and Res 2 inflicts -4 defense and res within 2 spaces at the start of the turn. Most debuffs nowadays just hit the closest foe or have a gigantic across-map range. Threatens were already not the best years ago. I don't think 2025 is going to see a comeback. For Solid Ground 3, this is a flat stat booster for +5 attack and defense, with the trade-off being -5 res. Solid Ground was only released on a few units, and the tier 4 only ever came out on Gregor. It's not inherently bad or anything, there just isn't really a reason to run flat defense boosting skills. Flat res can affect things like ploys, sabotages, discord, and other similar debuffing effects. The devs never really did the same for defense, and I can only think of Halloween Tamura off the top of my head as someone who has a flat defense check for something like a ploy effect. Some skills may compare flat defense, such as for AoE specials, or use flat defense for calculating bonus stats, but generally speaking, these are much rarer than flat res users. If you're okay with +3 attack and defense, and then +5 HP instead of -5 res, you could just use these Squad Ace Sacred Seals. Speaking of which, since it's still January, no new Squad Ace Seals to talk about for now. Same as New Year's, Squad Ace CL came with the 90th Squad Assault. You can get a flat stat boost for +3 speed, defense, and res.
Was it really a good idea to invite me to this festival? I offer up this victory to you. Did you think I was serious?
Jehanna Saber is coming in quite hot. He's a rare non-5 star Alliance infantry, and Saber's got nice stats with a very strong inheritable weapon, plus a new demoted skill for the free-to-play pool. Like the rest of this banner, Saber is quite fast. He has 40 HP, 47 attack, 46 speed, 45 defense, and 21 res. Saber has a fun attack super boom, and his base defense is extremely high. This comes at the cost of all his res. If you wanted an all-around unit, Jehanna Saber may not be the best option, but if you're fine with a fast physical brawler though, then he's a great optimized stat spread for that. Like Tethys and Malice's weapons from the banner, Saber's Jehanna Lance Plus has these same effects. 14 Might, at start of every player or enemy phase, if within 2 spaces of an ally, grant +6 attack and speed, dodge, and the debuff neutralization status to the user and those allies. You get a flat speed effect for +7 speed. If within 3 spaces of an ally, grant +5 to all stats, gain 7 flat damage reduction for first attacks, and unit's next counterattack deals true damage equal to the total damage reduced from the foe's first attack. Looking at New Year's Innis's Snaking Bow Plus and then Jehanna Lance 2 weeks later is a bit jarring. By all accounts, Snaking Bow is pretty darn good, with an effect not even on arcane weapons. Jehanna Lance just has like double the amount of effects though. First off, the attack, speed, dodge, and diff neutralization buffs for the entire team are quite good. Easy to use buffs on either phase, and Fast Not Infantry can use dodge for up to 40% damage reduction. For Saber, he gets +7 Phantom Speed to increase the chances of activating dodge in fast speed matchups. You then get +5 to all stats and 7 flat damage reduction. Excellent to pair with the dodge 40% DR. This combo is then used to empower your next counterattack. All the damage you reduced turns into true damage reflected back at the enemy. Even though dodge, phantom speed, and the speed buffs may not work for everyone, this lance may still be used strictly for that reflected damage effect. Debuff neutralization also works for everyone, so Jehanna Lance may honestly be a sought after weapon on all kinds of units. It will be best for fast units though, because if you initiate and then get hit back, you need to double to use that empowered counter after. For the rest of his base kit, Saber brings speed and defense finish 3. They are throwing this thing out on everyone after ignoring it for so long, but that's okay. Finish 3 skills are excellent for budget builds. +6 speed and defense if within 3 spaces of an ally, same range as Jehanna Lance. You then get +5 true damage if your special is ready or has triggered. Saber can meet this condition with Shield Pulse 3. He was the first to bring this skill back in year 1, yet it's remained fairly rare over the years. -2 cooldown on turn 1 if you use a defensive special, and for any defensive special triggers, you get 5 flat DR extra. The main drawback is that Shield Pulse's cooldown works once, and that's it. The flat DR always works, but you need to recharge Escutcheon or Pavis, and it's going to require some help. Now Shield Pulse 3 upgrades into Buffer 4. It's the dodge skill that only takes the Shield Pulse's -2 cooldown on turn 1 effect. If you haven't yet, there is a Severa in the Divine Code shop with Buffer and Godlike Reflexes. If you don't like GLR, you can also use Saber to get Buffer and then attack and speed finish 4 all at once. If you have Edward, you can get GLR, Buffer, and Breath of Life 4 instead. Unfortunately, Shield Pulse has kind of been replaced by Lagoo's Friend. It gives -2 cooldown every fight before being hit, and it has flat DR which works on all hits taken. Shield Pulse was never really a huge issue, probably should have been on a free-to-play unit a lot sooner. If you plan to merge Saber, the neutral nature will give him +1 HP, speed, and defense, perfectly fine to keep, but you can also grab +4 attack with that super boom. Saber does have one of the highest base attack stats for a Lance unit. Speaking of which, for free-to-play Lance fighters, it's a very small group. With Saber's addition, we've now doubled the entire selection that was available for like 6 years. We've had 4 new free-to-play Lance infantry starting with Ninja Saizo in late 2023. Still no new demote option though. Now Jehanna Saber's closest comparisons will be Saizo. These two are both going for a very halberdier spread of attack, speed, and defense at the cost of magical bulk. Saizo keeps up in speed and has slightly more defense. He has 2 less HP but 5 more res, and this does mean Saber has a good bit more attack than Saizo. Basically, Saber is even more min-maxed for lower magical bulk. If that's okay with you, 5 more attack is kinda hefty. If you prefer a more balanced defensive spread, Jared is the current middleman, high attack and speed, or spread out HP, defense, and res. Summer Norin is another similar unit, she's just a bit older. If you don't care for speed, Nabata Hawkeye is still the best tank. 40 resistance is incredibly good for a Lance user, and Hawkeye was released before Lagoo's Friend took over last year. That skill is basically made for a unit like him. Overall, Jehanna Saber is excellent for physical matchups, but may run into issues with magic if you want an omni-tanking unit. One of the strongest sword units currently also has adaptive damage, which is not great for a lopsided spread like Saber has. Still, Saber isn't going down without a fight when it comes to speed, and Jehanna Lance is an excellent option to try and keep up. For playstyle, Saber's base kit has the general idea of what a premium setup could do. Dodges 40% DR stacks with a Scuccian for around 58% damage reduction. After that is calculated, you have 12 flat damage reduction. Saber then takes all the damage reduced and turns it into true damage for his next counterattack. With Shield Pulse, you get this setup ready immediately, and the charge special means +5 true damage via speed and defense finish. To help use dodge, Saber has Phantom Speed and Speed Field Pulse. The debuff neutralization status also helps. To be honest, fun little game plan going on for a free unit here. To improve the setup, no follow-up would help Saber double and make sure he isn't doubled by slow units. If you don't use Flashing Blade or a Brett's Sacred Seal, Saber can't recharge his Scuccian. This applies in the next round of combat as well, which is an issue if you don't initiate with Saber again. One way to get around this is by using Repel for another 40% dodge. Saber can have 64% DR at all times, and then 75% DR if his Scuccian is ready. You will lose the flat 5 DR without Shield Pulse, but dodge is working on every attack. This setup could also allow Saber to run a damage special instead. Boombo and Luna work just fine. You can also do Bonfire. For other skills, since this is a buffing weapon, you can run Infantry No Follow 3 if you got Spirit or Thea's. No Follow Up fits the Jehanna Lance's buffs. You could also use defense and res buffing skills. If you got self buffs, you could try for bonus Delver just to get more stats. Since Saber will neutralize his own penalties, Panic Smoke can mess up the field buffs. If you want some healing and protection from adaptive damage, Mystic Boost would be a fine choice as well. When it comes to premium skills, Saber can utilize Infantry No Follow 4 to give no follow-up and warping to himself. Like Jehanna Malice, this would allow him to activate Prime 4 for distant counter, though Saber's lower base res may not make him the best for omni-tanking. You could upgrade to Finish 4 for healing, and Saber could run Spiked Wall if you wanted Bulwark. If you want to run a 3 cooldown special like Gust, Boulder, or No Quarter, Saber can still proc the specials if he doubles with a cooldown perk and gets hit. While Spiked Wall already has no guard, and you can run Tempo Echo to get 50% DR piercing, to get his own unpierceable % DR, you can run Godlike Reflexes with Buffer, but the 3 cooldown is very awkward. It is worth noting that with Jehanna Lance and Dodge 4 skills, Saber will get +14 Phantom Speed though. Generally speaking, I would say just go for Lagoo's Friend with times +4 or run Emblem Mart. As long as you can get GLR to 2 cooldown, Lagoo's Friend would charge GLR before getting hit. Either works, but I would say Lagoo's Friend fits Jehanna Lance better than Lagoo's Loyalty because of the reflected damage. With Friend, after GLR procs, Saber can get a full DR piercing reflected damage counter. That's perfect for this playstyle. If you use Loyalty, you need to run Tempo Echo or get DR piercing support. In addition, Saber has high base defense to get the same flat DR scaling as Loyalty's speed scaling, and he'll definitely get more than 7 true damage. Now, it's vulnerable to Scowl, but Gust can do a similar job to Godlike Reflexes. Unpierceable % DR, times Pulse and Lagoo's Friend have the cooldown to make it ready. The benefit is that Saber can get more damage on his counterattack. One concern of GLR and Gust is losing the speed check. Even with Phantom Speed, Saber might not have enough juice. With his high defense though, he can instead opt for something like Boulder. only on Ninja Diamant, but with Boulder, Saber can instead do a defense comparison. For Gust or Boulder usage, you can't run these with Lagoo's Friend if you're going to use an arcane weapon due to Slaying. Jehanna Lance is a great stand-in, though the dodge effect will get cut in half for that. For other skills, Saber can use any of the distant counter skills such as Prime, Distant Bonus Doubler, the Sacred Seal, or Echo. If you want no follow-up in a Lagoo's Friend times Pulse build, we now have perfect attack and speed. In the season, if you have it open, Saber is perfect for Breath of Life 4 or Odd Defense Wave for his defense checks. With Jehanna Lance, Saber can buff 3 stats for his team. For cooldown, Flashing Blade or Darting Breath work as seals, and if you use Tamara for Lagoo's Friend, you can also get times Pulse Echo to open up that C slot. If you want to get aggressive, Saber can go for Flash Sparrow or Momentum. This is a unit who can do just fine with something like a Brave Lance if you prefer a player phase setup. When it comes to Arcane Lewin, you can have no follow-up with Slaying, but Jehanna Lance has the same stats, better debuff neutralization, and while maybe not as consistent, the reflected true damage counter could have higher highs. This is an Inheritable that is arguably on par with the current Arcane Lances. The third one will have much more stats, possibly better cooldown, but Jehanna Lance has a combative effect you can't get from a passive or support effects, and the lack of Slaying enables a build you simply can't run with the Arcane Slaying standard. Arcanes might be better for Godlike Reflexes when it comes to Lagoo's Friend builds, but if you'd like to try Gust or Boulder, Jehanna Lance is a great example of Inheritable that simply holds its own just fine. In conclusion, this Tempest Trials does not have the greatest secrets of selection, but Jehanna Saber is simply a treat on multiple levels. He's a rare free-to-play class type that has access to tons of skill options. His excellent base attack and speed are paired with very high defense at the cost of magical bulk. With damage reduction though, Saber might be able to survive a hit, and with Jehanna Lance, he can reflect the damage he takes back to the enemy. This effect is then paired with 3 fun supported buffs for the team and 7 flat DR. It's a bit outclassed for modern purposes, but Saber also having Shield Pulse is at least interesting, fodder-wise. You could pass that along with Jehanna Lance while Harrington. You never know if we're going to get a proper Shield Pulse 4, it would somehow have to outdo Lagoo's Friend. On the Lagoo's Friend front, Saber is pretty much the free-to-play version of say a Tamara or Jehanna Ike, high-speed Lance Fighter with good defense, and Jehanna Lance holds its own for a Lagoo's Friend playstyle. He doesn't have Sandstorm or Aether's Path and probably has worse magical matchups, but Saber is about as good as it gets for a free unit. Not needing a new weapon is already a huge win, though he'll almost certainly use the 3rd Arcane Lance just fine, whatever that ends up being. All in all, an excellent free reward unit. We're starting 2025's pretty strong, at least for the seasonal heroic route units. The 3 to 4 star demotes and grand hero battle units really need to get it together though when it comes to inheritable weapons. Cullen's got good stats in Bulwark, but his weapon is like a 1.5 year old effect. Compare that with these Jehanna weapons and it's just a hilarious discrepancy. That's all I got to say for this video. Go get those orbs and have fun with Saber. I failed to get myself a Tethys after 40 summons, so time to head back out into the desert to dig up some orbs. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.